TitleMatchNetwork.com.
Welcome to another edition of the RF Video Shoot interview series. Today we're joined by, without a doubt, one of the greatest wrestling managers of all time, and without a doubt, one of the greatest wrestling performers, entertainers in the business today, Bobby the Brain Heenan. Thank you for joining us here today.
Thanks for having me. How you doing?
Real good. How you doing?
Good.
How was your trip up here?
And when you walk away from it's good.
I guess my first question would be how you got started in the wrestling business.
Well, you know, a lot of people get started different ways. I was working in Indianapolis at the Coliseum. And I started setting up the ring and carrying jackets and stuff like that. That's how I got involved.
Were you a wrestling fan growing up?
Yeah. In 1954, I went to the matches in Chicago, Marigold Arena. And I was amazed at what a guy could do. He'd tell the people to be quiet. They made noise. You tell them to make noise, they'd be quiet. You can control anybody.
So you saw this and you said, oh, this is something that I want to do.
Yeah. Yeah, something to mess with the people.
Now, when you first got into the business, you were basically a wrestler, right? Before managing.
Manager.
You came right off the bat and you wanted to manage.
Yeah.
Did you ever want to go into the ring and actively wrestle? Or?
Sure.
Who are some? Go ahead.
The reason I started as a manager because I was only 180 pounds. But I figured it out years ago. You manage as a wrestler and you wrestle as a manager. Very simple.
Right.
Very simple. When you're outside, you have to register and react like your man is. When you're in the ring, you have to be a coward. That's all you have to do. It works. But not many people know how to do that now. There's no emphasis on managers anymore. Because everybody wants the TNA.
Right.
Yeah. And with women, there's no payoff. Because you can't beat them up. You can't have a cage match. You can't hurt them. You can't do anything to them. So you look good. Like your honeymoon, till the lights go off.
How was the decision made to go from wrestling to managing? I mean, basically, it's something you...
Well, I didn't. I went from managing to wrestling.
That's true. That is true.
So it was easy. It was more money.
Now,
the reason I wanted to manage and then go into wrestling was because I knew that I could work. And I knew that you'd have to pay me to do it. That's where the money was.
what are some of the early territories that you worked?
Pardon?
Some of the early territories that you worked.
Indianapolis. I was the first manager ever in St. Louis in the NWA.
Right.
I worked Kansas City. I worked Minneapolis. I worked a little bit in Detroit. I worked in Canada for the Bear Man up in Ontario. I worked for the WWF. I worked for WCW. I worked for NWA in 1979.
You also worked for Georgia, I believe, when Ole was there.
Yeah. Yeah. I worked for Paul Bosch in Houston. Great guy. Best payoff guy in the business.
Really?
Yeah. Good man.
What are your early memories of working for Georgia with Ole Anderson as booker? How was Ole?
Oh, horrible. Horrible. No respect for humans.
Everybody says that he's a miserable guy.
Yeah. Yeah. He's the kind of a guy that has a size 10 foot but has a size 9 shoe. Nothing makes him happy.
Now, early on, who did you travel with the most in the business?
Blackjack Lanza, Baron von Raschke, Pepper Gomez, Wilbur Snyder, myself.
Do you have any good road stories from those guys? Or?
Yeah, well, they're all good. You know, same thing. You drive 200 miles and then you come back 200 miles with a case of beer and Slim Jims. It's fun.
Right.
Not a whole lot of money in those days, but you didn't care because you wanted to do it.
Right.
You were stupid. You should have realized they're making money off me. Pay me now. We didn't know then.
Who are some of the guys responsible for taking you under the wing and teaching you the ropes, the psychology of the business? And
No one. Ray Stevens.
Ray Stevens?
Yeah, Ray talked to me a lot. Other than that, all you had to do was open your eyes and see what was right and wrong to do. You could tell guys that were over and guys that weren't over. And guys that are always underneath will always be underneath. I told my wife one day, we had an argument. I said, if you could have done any better, you would have. And that's as simple. If guys want to be champion, they'll get there. If they don't, they won't. A lot of guys think, I can work. I know how to buy trunks. I know how to buy boots. That don't mean you can put asses in a seat. That's what a worker is. A lot of guys say Hogan can't work anymore. He can still put asses in the seats. That's a worker.
That's true. That's what it's all about, though.
There's no doubt about that. It all boils down to money. If you're in this business for anything more than money, you're a fool. Monsoon told me that.
We're going to talk about Gorilla. I got a lot of questions regarding him. Do you have any good road stories with Crusher or the Bruiser, or any stories on that?
No, never traveled with him.
How were they to work with?
In the ring, easy.
Easy.
Very easy. Crusher was a very, 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 very good guy.
What were they like outside the ring?
Crusher was, he went home to his family. Didn't hang around much with anybody. Didn't socialize that much. Everybody went home in those days. You were on the road all the time, so you didn't hang around that much. And when you went back to the hotel, you went to bed.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, you mentioned Ray Stevens earlier. A lot of people we've done interviews with in the past say that Ray is probably one of the greatest workers of all time.
Yes. No doubt about that.
What is your opinion of Ray, and what was he like outside the ring, too?
Oh, Ray was fun. He was more fun outside the ring. You didn't know what he was going to do. But he always made you laugh. Like he told me, he said his wife was about 10 years older than him, and she was a wrestler. And he said, I used to have her on her knees twice a week begging. I said, did you hit her? He said, no, she's telling me to come out from under the bed and fight like a man. I said, Ray, how old were you when you first had your first lady?
Right.
He said, 6. I said, where'd you take her? He said, I don't know. I was too drunk to remember. That's the kind of a guy Ray Stevens was.
Right.
Everything was fun. And really, I learned a lot from him. Simply that if you got to have fun what you do. You got to have fun. I don't care how much money you make. If you don't have fun, it don't mean nothing. It doesn't mean a thing.
What was it like working with, I guess, Verne Gagne and the AWA back in the early...
Oh, Verne was fun. He was strict. It was funny. He made you do things a lot of people didn't want to do, like be on time and work and be conscientious. I mean, a lot of guys didn't want to do that. A lot of guys wanted to get there when they felt like it. No, Verne was easy. As long as you worked hard, that's all. He paid you good. I have no trouble with Verne.
Memories of working with Nick Bockwinkel and managing him.
Oh, Nick was fun. Nick was always, you'd ask Nick a question, he'd tell you how to build a watch. You ask him what time it was. Nick had, one night we're in a car and Nick is talking about a paradox. So he says to Ray and I, you know what a paradox is? I said, yeah, it's 2 long dogs. Ray said, no, it's 2 places where you put a boat. The next day, Nick says, have you guys read about the egg deficit in Guam? Ray says, hey, asshole, we're still working on paradox. But Nick used to like to use big words. But
right.
That's fine. Nick cared about the business. He cared about himself.
Right.
And he always wanted to look good, and he was a professional.
Memories back then on Hogan and the AWA.
Oh, Hogan was phenomenal. When he came into the AWA, Verne wanted him to be a heel. So he put him with a horrible human being, Johnny Valiant. This guy couldn't get over turning on a light. And I don't care how many people Hogan beat, people wanted him to be a babyface. They loved him. And that's the way it went.
Did you know that he was going to be a huge star in the business?
Oh, yeah.
Later
I saw
on?
him in 79 in Georgia. Walked in the dressing room, he was just huge, and I just saw, this kid's got it. He's one of those guys that just had it.
Do you think that Verne pushed his son too hard at any time, like Greg Gagne?
Didn't push him enough. Should have pushed him off the cliff.
Do you think Verne pushed himself too hard?
How harder could he have pushed him? He owned the territory, owned the belt. All
right.
How else could he have pushed himself? Could have grown hair.
What do you think went wrong with the AWA as far as the business standpoint?
AWA tried to fight a promotion that they didn't know how to fight. Vince was New York mentality, showbiz. Verne was wrestling. Wool trunks, grab an ankle, hold it. Vince was anything goes. You couldn't keep up with it. The world wanted to go a different direction. And Verne and a lot of promoters couldn't keep up with it. They didn't know how to do it.
Right.
That's why I left. I was there and I thought, we're going nowhere here. AWA to me always meant Alzheimer's Wrestling Association or all the world's assholes.
So basically, he didn't have the concept, and he couldn't see into the future. He stayed.
No one did, except Vince. No one did. Eddie Graham, Nick Goulas, name them. Stu Hart. Nobody did. They're all wrestlers. They had no idea what showbiz was.
Right. Now, you talked also about Eddie Graham from Florida and stuff like that. Did you ever work for him?
A couple times.
What was that like?
Oh, it was easy. I just went down there to work to write off my trip for vacation.
Right.
But I never went to the territory to work as a wrestler. So I never had anything to do with Eddie. But Eddie was what I knew from people that worked there, he was a disciplinarian. He wanted you to do a finish a certain way. He had long finishes, like 20 minutes. And he ran his territory strict. And that was probably the way to run it. Because the guys are flakes. Guys are flakes because the wrestling business makes them that way. They don't give us any insurance, no benefits, or anything. So every time we get a chance to grab on some money or bite somebody, we take it. They made us this way. But it's our own fault, too. If we didn't want it, we can go get another job.
Love the business.
Well, we don't want to get up in the morning and work.
Right.
That's what it is. We don't want to work at Sears and move refrigerators.
Huh.
So you get up and try to work with a guy that can't work.
How was Stu Hart to work for up in Canada?
Never worked for him.
Never.
No, he was, I imagine it would have been hell.
Yeah, the traveling and stuff.
The mentality of the whole territory and him, everything is, But, I like Stu, I like Helen, I like Brett. But to be up there in Canada, when you ever go to Canada?
Yeah, we were there. We were at Brett.
When you land on the plane, they tell you to sit your watch back to 1945. No, there's nothing there.
It's different. Now, how did you wind up going to the World Wrestling Federation in the early 80s?
Hogan.
Hogan brought you in?
Yeah. Hogan called me. I was in Minneapolis. I got him into AWA. And he called me. I went to Japan. And when I got back, he called me a couple times, wanted me to go. But AWA was easy. You worked 3 or 4 days a week, and you made good money. You didn't have to work every day. I didn't want to work every day. I had a wife and a kid, and I didn't want to work every day. I just don't like traveling and working every day.
Right.
And he told me to go call Vince, and he put together a deal, and Vince offered me 3 times what I was making at the AWA. So I had to go for it.
Now, were you with Verne when Mr. Saito and Ken Patera got into trouble?
Mm-hmm.
What was the vibe in the locker room when that all happened?
Nothing.
Nothing. Just boys being the boys.
Another night out.
Yeah.
That's all. Somebody got caught.
What were your initial thoughts when you first met Vince?
First time I met Vince was when they were promoting the Inoki Muhammad Ali thing. And Nick and I, Bockwinkel and I went to Chicago from Omaha, and they had an exhibition where Muhammad Ali was going to box like Buddy Wolf and Kenny J and a couple of guys. And we went up to dinner, breakfast, and walked up to Vince's table, introduced ourselves, and he went, okay. But then when I went there to work for him, couldn't be nicer. I mean, man's a genius.
How did Vince change as his company grew?
When you're there, you can't tell. So since I've been gone, I can see where it's grown bigger, but I don't know what he's like because I haven't been around him. But while I was there, he was always easy to talk to. He always said, "Here's my phone number. 24 hours a day, you call me. You can ask me anything." A lot of guys don't like him. A lot of guys do. He's never been bad to me.
So you always got along with him?
Yeah, and no problem.
What are some of your early memories of managing? I guess you managed John Studd, Ken Patera, when you first came in.
Studd was a very nice man. Should have never been in the business. He was too nice to be in the business.
Right.
Too nice to be a heel. And Patera should have been a heel all his life because he was an athlete, and he was pampered his whole life and world's strongest man, and he didn't take You get pulled over on the road for a ticket, like going 35 and a 30. He's like, "Come on, Barney, give me the ticket, asshole." I mean, you're not going to get off on stuff like that. But Stud would always sign autographs and was very nice to people. And
Was Hogan different to work with in the WWF than he was in the AWA because of
no,
bigger star?
no, he never changed. He wasn't that way. A lot of guys don't like him because they didn't get to work with Hogan. The reason they didn't get to work with Hogan is because they couldn't draw money with Hogan. And you guys that are sitting home right now and are saying, Hogan screwed me. If you could have drawn money, you'd have been there. If you could have been the worst human being in life, you'd have been there to draw money. The only reason you didn't work with Hogan was you couldn't draw money. That's simple. He'd work with a grape if he could draw money. That's simple.
Was there any kind of rivalries between any of the managers? Because you were there at the time, Lou Albano, Jimmy Hart.
I don't know. I never talked to none of them. I never discussed my career with them. I never discussed money, days off, pay, or anything. What you do is your business. What I do is mine. I found out a long time ago, if I find out that I got $1,000 last night and you got $2,000, I'm going to be mad. So I don't want to know what you make.
Right.
Because, and then if they find out that I got 2 and they got 1, they're not going to give them more. They're going to take from me to make them happy. So I never tell anybody what I made.
Right. Memories of Jimmy Snuka.
Huh. Jimmy was he was good. He was a hell of an athlete, boy. He played rugby, I think, over in Fiji or whatever they do over there. I guess that's just for lunch. But I mean, I don't know how they live over there, but they come out of trees and they jump from place to place and. Hell of an athlete, brother.
Thoughts on Roddy Piper?
Piper is very talented. I remember Roddy when he was in coming out of Winnipeg, Canada, coming to Minneapolis to wrestle. He was about 190 pounds. And you had big guys then. You had Mosca, you had Crusher, you had Larry Hennig, and they'd always ask the guys. They wouldn't ask him, but they would say, "Who'd you work with last time?" So he didn't follow up.
Right.
Piper didn't care. He'd wrestle anybody. He just wanted the experience. I mean, I could see he was going to be good because he had a good mouth. He could talk. Talking will always get you better. Will help you more than your body or your ability. It always does.
Speaking of talking, you're probably one of the greatest guys on the mic and very quick-witted. Who taught you basically how to talk in front of the mic, or is it something that you've always had, natural talent?
It's so simple. Right now, can you hear him slurring on my words a bit? I have TMJ. You know what that is?
No.
It's a nerve. It goes down to your jaw, into your ear, into your neck. And it's very hard to speak sometimes. It happens, and I don't know what causes it, but I have to go have a mouth replacement, some gimmick done.
Right.
Who knows? Doctors, they don't know what to tell you. I learned how to talk shaving. Every day you shave your face. Be a German. Be an Indian. Be a heel. Be a baby face. Be whatever you want to be. But when you shave, you always see yourself like the people see you. Do an interview. That's how I did interviews. I taught myself to do interviews.
Basically just looking and doing facial
expressions. Just looking in the mirror. That's all. And everybody now does the same interview. He's going down. Whoa, that will make you... Might as well roll the car and the kids. Let's go see this. No. They all use cliches. No one is creative anymore and knows how to get over. They think yelling and screaming. They think wearing sunglasses and a beard and long hair. Why dress like the guy that buys tickets? That's what you're doing.
If you were to give advice to guys that are in the business today, what would you tell them?
Put a 38 to the roof of your mouth. Don't ever make any money on this.
Today's
it's over. Business is over. Wrestling's over.
Why do you say that?
Because there's no more... the magic is over. We've now taught the fans...
It's been exposed too much?
We've now taught the fans how we do tricks. It's over. Grab what we can right now. Suck what we can. Like, they're talking about the terrorists. You don't swat termites or mosquitoes. Kill the swamp. We've killed the swamp. We've showed the people how we did the tricks. No more. If Houdini or Blackstone showed everybody how to do their tricks, they couldn't draw a house next time.
You don't think the business could be retaught?
It's over. Everyone knows it's not real. You ever been in a fight?
In a real fight? Yeah. Once in my life.
30 seconds the most.
Right.
No. Hit again, and that's one time, it's over. The only stuff is your eyes and your balls. That's it. It's all entertainment. And they don't know how to entertain anymore. Because there's people in the business now that aren't from the business.
Are you shocked at the openness of the business? I mean,
nah.
Because it's really changed. I mean,
yeah. I tried to defend it for a while, but you can't anymore because the people you have in it that were wrestlers wouldn't defend it because their work was so bad. I mean, you don't hit a guy and do this.
Right.
They've never been in a fight. I mean, they look stupid. And promotion did that. They used guys that would work for nothing. And they compensated, they retarded their own product. That's what they did.
You were there for the whole WrestleMania 3 and all that stuff. What do you think about WrestleMania 3 and the success?
I thought that was great, just to see that many people there. And Andre, that was his last run, and he knew it. And that's why he wanted to do that with Hogan.
Right.
And he knew he couldn't make any more money after that. He just couldn't get around anymore.
Did you realize that the WWF was going to be as big as it was going to get? Or did you,
When I first started, I knew that Vince was going to do something different. And then when I could see it, just different things he did that nobody else did. I said, this is the way to go. That's why I went with it.
MTV and stuff like that.
Oh, yeah.
Entertainment getting on.
No one else did that. No one else wanted to associate anybody with anything like that. But that was the way to go. See, we should have smartened up the television people and the producers and directors. No, we smartened up the fans.
Thoughts on managing and working with Paul Orndorff, Mr. Wonderful? You guys were great together, so.
Paul was a very intense guy. He loved what he did, and he cared about how he looked. And he really was concerned about his image. And he always tried to make himself better. That's what I liked about him. When an interview came, what are we going to talk about? How many minutes we got? How much are you going to take? I said, I'll take 30. I'll open it at 15. Give me 10 at the end. Then I'll have a minute and a half. He was always a professional. I liked him. I called him the other day, and he's got some bad neck problems now and arm problems, but he's gonna be all right.
You talked briefly about Andre the Giant. What was he like outside the ring? We've heard various.
Oh, he hated people. People always come up to him and say, "How tall are you? How much you weigh? How big's your hands?" Oh, he was just rude. He was
just tired of it, probably.
Oh yeah, and he knew he only had so long to live because they told him he had the giant disease, which he would grow, but his organs wouldn't. So he had a lot of problems.
Now, you also wrestled a couple times for even Sal Balomo and stuff like that. How did that come up? Vince said, I just basically want to...
They just booked it. Just do what you're told.
Right.
Yeah. That's all.
We talked briefly about it a couple seconds ago. How has kayfabe changed from now? I mean, from then to now, as far as, the openness of the business?
Well, there is no kayfabe. No, there is none. I mean, in the 60s when I started, the heels rode one car, babyface rode another. You never did that. You never talked to anybody in a restaurant. Or people always say, I don't remember the other guy, saw this guy and that guy wrestling, and they went in a bar and had a beer together. Nah, didn't happen as much as people think. It really didn't. It probably did, but not like everybody says.
Right.
People really, the boys really protected the business because your mentality was, you can't let them know it's fake or they won't buy tickets, and that's what feeds us. So that's what it was. And stuntmen didn't show you how to do stunts. The funny thing about the business is, we've never said it was real. You people said it was fake. Right?
Right.
At the beginning of Roseanne show, does Tom Arnold come out and say, I'm not really married to her? Does Carson come out and say, Ed McMahon only is here for a half hour a night? They never tell anybody what it is. It's a show. It was a television show. That's all it was. That's all it was.
What was your reaction in the locker room when, I guess, Iron Sheik and Jim Duggan got caught together in the car? Because they were feuding at the time and stuff like that. And I mean,
it had to happen. Probably happened years, 100 times before that.
Yeah, just
never brought up because WWF was getting popular then. That's why it was. Years ago, they let you go. The cops would let you go.
Right.
That's what it was. You were popular.
Who were some of the earlier guys that you managed also in the WWF?
I managed the Missing Link.
I remember that.
I'm trying not to.
What was he like outside the ring, Billy?
He came up to me the first night. He says, "What time is your flight tomorrow?" I said, "Around 10. He said, "Mine's around 11. He said, "If you get there 9:45, that's fine." I said, "For what?" He said, "To get my boarding pass." I said, "Why can't you get it?" He said, "Well, my gimmick, I don't talk." I said, "Well, you're going to have to now. Because I'm with your manager 20 minutes a night if you go that long." I said, "I'm not paid to take care of you on the road."
Right.
He said, "Well, I got the face and the hair." I said, "This is New York. They'll just think you have a bad hairdo.
Right.
They won't care. You'll blend in." But no, I was never anybody's manager. I never wanted to do that. I never wanted to be responsible for someone's life. That's why I never wanted to be a booker or a promoter. I don't want to make sure people make a living. I don't have enough time making myself a living. Don't worry about making a bunch of crybabies a living.
Right.
Being a manager, if you were a real manager, it would be like working at a daycare center all day with adults. No.
I guess the only shoot manager would be Paul Ellering.
Yeah, look how good he's doing.
Right. So you and
What did he ever do? What did he ever do?
Yeah.
Really, what did he ever do? Couldn't work. Nice guy. Couldn't draw you a dime. He just slid there with the Wall Street Express.
Right.
That was it.
Did you have any other roles besides managing? Obviously, not the boys, but behind the scenes as far as...
When I was with WWF, I used to produce the interviews. Myself, Jack Lanza, and George Steele. I produced a big portion of them. I'd tell them what to say. They knew what to say, but I would watch it, make sure it came across okay. And a lot of guys were very easy to work with. Some guys, Ultimate Warrior, you couldn't produce him. You know why? He was too good for the business. He was too smart.
As far as what?
Where is he now? I mean, that's the truth. That's the way it is.
Who were some of the other guys that were difficult to work with?
Albano wasn't easy to produce. Rubber bands are too tight.
You'll see it today, actually.
Yeah, Piper wanted to do his own thing.
Right.
Some guys want to do their own thing. I don't mind that.
Did Vince allow that, or did he say, no, you got to stick?
No. Vince was cool. Vince knew it's not like we're a team. Everybody plays the same. It can't be that way. There are stars and there aren't stars, and some people have to be treated differently to make a business run. And he knew how to treat everybody differently, and it worked.
How did you get into the announcing with Gorilla Monsoon?
Jesse went and did that movie with Arnold.
Okay, Predator.
And he was doing primetime then. So then Vince asked me if I would want to do that. I said, sure. So when I did that, and then I did the Garden, Madison Square Garden,
right.
And then I did Challenge, and Jesse he's a big movie star then. So I lucked into it.
How's it
That's
work?
what happened to me at WCW too. They didn't like Jesse there because him and Hogan have a problem.
Right.
Jesse has a bigger problem than Hogan does.
What is the real story between the two? I mean,
I think, first of all, Jesse always wanted to be superstar Billy Graham. And then Graham disappeared. And then in Minneapolis, then Hogan came in. And Jesse was jealous of Hogan. That's what it was. Jesse probably has more sleepless nights worrying about Hogan than he does the state of Minnesota. Hogan is never worried about Jesse. And that's what it is, I think. Jesse is jealous of Hogan.
And it carried over there.
Jesse was a great talker. Had strange-looking outfits. But when the bell rang, it was over.
Didn't work.
No.
No.
No disgrace. No disgrace to that, because I can't be a governor of a state. But he couldn't work. But he could work, because he could draw people. But he couldn't take bumps, and he couldn't entertain you physically in the ring.
Right.
That's what I'm saying.
He must be good at politics, because he's not doing that. So.
Well, A lot of people can do that. You know, a lot of people are. There's a lot of good preachers out there too.
Exactly.
You know,
Exactly.
I mean, look at Tammy and Jimmy. I'd like them for neighbors.
Yeah.
I would. Would it be fun looking over the fence?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Gorilla Monsoon, how did you get along with him behind the scenes?
Oh, one of the best friends I've ever had in my life. Just an honest, decent man. Meant no harm to anyone. But he was honest with you. He'd tell you if there was something wrong. He'd tell you if you were the shits or weren't. But he was just a good man.
Some of the skits you did on primetime were just hilarious. I mean,
Never rehearsed anything.
all ad lib.
We would sit down. What are we going to do tonight? This is the Halloween show. Let's do this and that. That's how it went. And not that we were that good. We just were that good with each other.
Right.
And it really was fun. It was fun. That was the most thing about it. It was fun. It wasn't a job. I look forward to going to be with him. Yeah.
Any of the skits stand out the most? I mean, you guys went to Vegas one time. And
I remember Halloween when we did, where Monsoon wore a gorilla mask the whole time and had a tux on and gorilla hands. At the end of the show, we noticed that a cameraman was about the same size as him. So I said, Gino, switch with the guy. So the cameraman came and sat down, put the mask on, put Gino's tux on, had the hands.
Right.
And as we're wrapping up the show, Monsoon walks in with his bag and everything. He says, I'm sorry I'm late. Who have I been with for 2 hours?
Right.
But just stuff like that we used to do. And he was the best.
I remember we went to the movie set, and I think it was the Western movie
He
set.
blew up with the dynamite.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Monsoon.
That took us 2 days. Old Tucson.
Yeah, it was great.
He was mad because I was doing a Super Bowl. He wanted to watch the game.
Right.
He didn't want to be there doing that.
Right. Did anything ever go wrong with the skits? I mean, when you went to Vegas with the live people,
Nah.
everything was.
Nothing. It didn't matter. See, when you're the brain, that's the best gimmick in the world because people expect you to be stupid. So no matter what you do, if it screws up, it works. If it works fine, it works. You can't fail being the brain if you don't care. But a lot of guys care about their image. How am I going to look? Like Monsoon said, if you're in this for anything more than money, you're a fool.
Who are the Rosati sisters?
They were 3 ladies from upstate New York that were friends with Vince McMahon's, and he liked them, and they were just real fans. They were really, really nice people. Yeah.
When they did Terry Taylor and Brooklyn Brawler, they did the angle in the studio where he slammed him through the thing. Do you think they could have utilized that show for more angles, like live, or because that seemed to come off all right?
I barely remember that. That thing with Terry Taylor and me, that was an embarrassment. I did it because Vince wanted me to, but I mean, he wasn't a top guy. He was never going to draw you money. He was just an underneath guy. So he made him a rooster. So, Brawler, you could have done better with him if he'd been smarter. He was from Brooklyn, but he didn't know how to be a brawler. I took him to Hershey Park Arena, had him lay underneath the boilers and get dirty. He went outside and rubbed dirt on himself. I said, not that kind of dirt. You got to have building dirt.
Right.
You got to look like, he'd wash his shirt. Nobody washes your shirt. You're a brawler. So that's what I'm saying. Some guys are main event. Some guys aren't. Difference between a limo driver and a cab driver.
What's that?
Limo driver has a suit. It's the only difference.
Getting back to Terry Taylor, do you think that Vince put him into that gimmick as a dig because he was booking for Bill Watts?
Oh, I don't think Terry Taylor was ever a problem where anybody had to punish him for what he did. He was so minute; it was unbelievable.
Right.
I'm not a real fan of his. No, I don't like him.
Any specific reasons, or?
Yeah, he's not a truthful guy. He lied to me at WCW, and he lied to me. I don't trust people that don't lie to me. Sorry.
Do you want to talk about it, or as far as what happened?
No, it wasn't even that important. It was just trivial little kid shit.
Right.
And that's why he's where he's at.
What do you attribute the chemistry between you and Gorilla? You guys work great together.
Comedy. I think we both like to laugh. And we both had a good time with each other, and we both realized that wrestling is not. It's not a cure for cancer. It's not a heart transplant. It's entertainment. Have fun with it. If you're that serious about anything, go do something else.
Right.
And we just had fun doing it.
Did you enjoy announcing or managing better?
Oh, announcing.
Announcing.
You don't get touched. No one picks you up.
Right.
Yeah.
Did you like make a lot more money like with your guys working with Hogan? Did you made it? Was it that much of a difference?
Sure. You always made more when you worked in the main event, and when your man was involved in an angle with Hogan or something. Sure, you made a lot of money. That's why with the Red Roosters of this world, I was just doing that to get TV time. You're not gonna make him money with those guys. They're not gonna make him money. Would you pay to see him?
Huh.
No, I guess not. No.
Some of the angles that you've been involved with, like the cutting of Andre's hair and stuff like that, what are some of the ones that stick out the most to you?
Oh, that was fun because John Studd used to carry the hair in the bag for
Right.
over a year. Finally, Gene Okerlund said one day, he said, "I think it's getting gray." He had it so long in the bag it was getting gray. I remember a funny Andre story. Andre used to like to have a few drinks in the morning.
Right.
So he got on a plane one day, and in first class, you can pull the armrest up and move it. So he's trying to pull that up. So the stewardess comes by and she says, "Anything I can get you?" So Andre wanted a drink, so he said, "Screwdriver." About 10 minutes later, she comes up and hands him a screwdriver. So Andre says to her, "What would you have brought me if I'd have said Bloody Mary?"
Oh.
So I said, "Can I talk to you for a minute?" So I called her into the galley.
Right.
I said, "When a guy gets on the plane and he's 7'5" and he's 550 pounds and he's smashed, don't bring him tools. It's simple.
Yeah.
What if you wanted a buzzsaw or a jackhammer? No.
Do you have any good stories about you and Gino, such as bloopers or anything?
No, because we let him go.
It was just
They were just, we would mess up so many times on things. We just let it go because he laughed and I laughed. And
right.
he would say, what are you doing? Stop that. And we just had fun. It was the best time in my 40 years in the business with him.
How did the idea come about for the Bobby Heenan show?
Vince came up with it. And Vince had a guy that was supposed to go on okay things with USA Network. And that's why I only ran 4 shows, I think. Because USA said, we have a contract for 2 hours of wrestling, not an hour and a half, not a half-hour Bobby Heenan show. Well, it's still wrestling. Well, they didn't think of it that way. So that was in the contract. You had 2 hours of wrestling, so that's why they cut it off.
Right.
But I think it would have been fun to continue. I think it would work now.
It was great stuff.
But it was hard to do because there was no audience. You couldn't time your laughs.
Right.
But the people were they were real. They were real. They found them on the street.
Where did Jameson come from?
He's an actor. He's around New York, and Vince liked the guy for some reason. I mean, he's a nice man, and he's a good actor. He did some commercials for different things, and he's a good guy.
I know you guys had like the porno actress on one time. Rosati Sisters, I believe, were on one of the shows.
The Oinkettes.
Yeah, the Oinkettes.
The porno queen we had was
Heather Hunter.
Heather Hunter.
Yeah.
Yeah. And but she wasn't appealing looking to me. She was small and she wasn't sexy. Sexy to me is sexy. Sexy isn't having everything hang out of your clothes and big lips and a bunch of aqua velva on it. That don't work.
She's still in the biz.
Is she?
She's still making.
Great.
Well, there's a lot of guys at 4 o'clock in the morning still pulling into those places too, wearing galoshes. So,
Thoughts on managing Rick Rude?
Rude was hard to manage. Rude didn't want a manager. He didn't want me. He thought he could get over without me, which was fine. I don't have any problem with that. He always thought I was trying to steal his heat. Never did that. Vince put me with him because of the introduction, ladies and gentlemen, and we would do the Chippendale thing, and that was it. And obviously, Vince felt that Rude couldn't do it alone, or he wouldn't have put him with me. Other than that, Rude was just a business partner to me. That was all.
Thoughts on your Weasel Suit matches with Ultimate Warrior, and how hard was it to work with him?
The Weasel Suit matches with Verne Gagne were great. With the Ultimate Warrior, it was hard to work an angle with him because he didn't know how to work. He didn't understand the business. Oh, tell you a story. Andre used to like to be clotheslined, but he wanted to step out about a foot from the ropes. So when you hit him, he could take a step back and tie himself.
Right.
Well, the Warrior would come like 200 miles an hour and just hit him as hard as he could, which would never bother Andre. He would hear Andre go, I knew something was going to happen down the road.
Huh.
Next night, same spot. Third night, here comes the Warrior. 200 miles an hour. Just as he gets there, Andre goes, puts the hand up, which is like this.
Right.
Stops him cold, cracks the paint. He grabs the rope, almost goes down, doesn't know where he's at. Next night, here he comes. Bing, and Andre looks down at me and yells, he's learning. That's how to teach him.
That's great.
That's how to teach him. Because I'll tell you something. If Andre did not want you to have a good match, forget it. There's nothing you could do to him. There's nothing you could do to him.
We've heard that before.
I think Jake said that.
Yeah.
Every time he went to pick him up, Andre would step on his hair.
Oh, I told you, Andre. Stand on his hair and pick him up. I would tell Andre used to like to stand on you, too. I would tell him hop.
Unbelievable.
Oh, yeah, he could do every one. He used to like to sit on the Iron Sheik. When the Sheik's head faced that way, he would sit this way on him and take his arms and roll him like a boat.
Unbelievable.
Just hated the Sheik. Hated him. Because he pushed people around and took advantage of people in the ring. That's why Andre didn't like. You know, a lot of guys in the old days were weekend wrestlers. They had jobs. And they would come on TV and they weren't any good. They shouldn't have been there.
Right.
So some guys would hurt him. Well, that's not going to help you in your match. It's not going to help you when this guy punch you and throw you around either. So what you do is you take him down, you get holes, you get yourself over. You work with the people, you get the announcer, you kill 6 minutes. Forget him. But a lot of guys will go out there and want to give those guys spots.
Right.
You can't. They can't do them. Then they get mad at them when they mess them up and they beat the hell out of the guys. These guys are working for the weekend. They have a job during the week. They have to feed their families. People never cared about that.
When Ric Flair came into the company, whose idea was it to put you with Ric Flair? Because a lot of people said, why did they put Bobby with Ric Flair? Ric Flair's a great talker. And do you think it was,
The reason they put me with Ric Flair because Ric Flair couldn't come in to talk yet. He wasn't free of his contract.
Okay, that's right. You guys did the vignettes first.
So they sent the belt first.
Right.
That was it.
Thoughts on managing Ric Flair?
Great. Fun guy.
I guess it seemed eventually you faded out of the Flair, and actually you.
Well, I had a bad neck. I had broke my neck in '83 in Japan, and it constantly kept getting worse. That's why I quit managing. I just couldn't do it anymore. I was in too much pain, and I just wanted to. It was no more fun. I've done it all. I mean, there was nothing else to do. I've been at an all-night gas station in Japan. So what's left?
All right.
Yeah.
Thoughts on Kurt Hennig?
Kurt's a great athlete, good kid. I know his dad and mom very well, and he's a talent. He's misunderstood a lot by people. They think he's a lot of promotions think he's trying to stick it up their butt all the time. He's trying to get what everybody's trying to get is money. That's all.
All right. What are some of the, favorite wrestlers that you like to work with and work spots out with, and who are some of the least favorite wrestlers that you like?
You mean in the ring?
In the ring.
Oh, I enjoyed working with Red Bastien, Pepper Gomez, the High Flyers, Verne Gagne. I didn't like working with the Warrior because he had no respect for wrestlers. He was just a muscle-bound maitre d' at some titty bar. Probably, I don't know. I mean, he has no wrestling ability. He never thought about learning how to craft. He thought he'd put paint on and hang different things off his boots and wear feathers or something. I don't know. But I learned that a long time ago. I told Pat O'Connor told me one time. I told Pat, I said, I'm going to wear these black and white boots and a black and this and that. And Pat says, learn how to work. That's how you're going to make money. And that was right. But Pepper Gomez was fun to work with. Mad Dog Vachon was fun to work with.
What was your favorite angle, I guess, that you were ever involved with in the WWF?
In the WWF?
Yeah.
Oh, Andre and Hogan. Yeah.
Big business.
Yeah. Because it was, you could sink your teeth into it. It wasn't like walking around with a rooster. I mean, here you had a man.
Right.
You had something to talk about, you know, and you had, the hottest thing in the business right now was Hogan. And the biggest guy was Andre. And I feel Vince didn't think that I could carry the torch. He wouldn't have put me there, you know. No manager in the business has... I'm the first manager ever in the NWA in St. Louis. First manager in Japan. I did a lot of things no one else ever did. Not because I wanted to, because it just happened. But I enjoyed what I did. I really did.
How was Japan?
Full of Japs.
Really?
A lot of Japs over there. Yeah.
As far as like working there, what was it like?
It's okay. It's just 1 month you put in, you're on the bus, and you go home.
Right. Put in your time.
Yeah.
Now, when the sex scandal broke out, what was the vibe in the locker room in the World Wrestling Federation?
The sex scandal with WWF?
Yeah.
And the homosexuality and all that? No one cared. No. It's like, what would happen if the word got out in the record industry as someone smoked dope? I mean, it's just another story, another thing. You didn't care about it.
Right.
Everybody wanted to do was go home. All they wanted to do was get their checks and go home. They were so tired of traveling. Every building looked the same. Every airport looked the same. You'd work 10 days, you were off 3. You'd work 4, you were off 3, you worked 10. Now, I didn't, because some of those days, I had 3 days off. I had to go to Baltimore and do prime time.
Right.
Or some guys would have to do personal appearances, so you didn't always get that time off.
Did you ever do TNT? The show TNT?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
With Vince. Neidhart had 80-some days one time in a row he worked. And I worked in Georgia for the NWA in 79 from February 2nd until Thanksgiving without a day off.
How do you cope?
You drove. You didn't leave the house till 3 or 4 in the afternoon, so you always had the mornings at home.
Right.
And you were making money. And other than that, what are you going to do?
Thoughts on Haku?
Haku?
Yeah.
Class man. One of the toughest men I've ever met in my life. But he has a real good heart for people. And all he wants to do is just work and feed his family.
Did Vince ever do anything, either on camera or in an angle, match, etc., behind the scenes that really upset you?
No, he never upset me doing anything. He was smooth. He just knew how to handle people.
Thoughts on the British Bulldogs?
Oh, I thought they were great. I thought they were the first tag team that really worked as a tag team. You had brother tag teams before, but these guys, I mean, they just spots you never saw with the press slams off the top rope. I thought they were great. I was impressed by them. I enjoyed working with them.
Thoughts on Randy Savage and Elizabeth? We've heard a lot of stories on the way he treated her and stuff, and locker room.
Well, I was in broadcasting then, or I was with Andre, so I wasn't with Randy on the road with them. I'd heard stories that he kept her locked into a room so the guys wouldn't. Well, you have to do that sometimes because boys will be boys. But then again, you should know if you should maybe bring her around then. So I don't know. It never affected me or anything. I managed Randy's dad in the early 60s, Angelo Poffo. And he was a nice man. Randy's okay. Wiz was just a very nice person and had a role to play. That's all I looked at it as. I never looked at anybody like, this is a macho man. This is a Hulk. This is a Bruiser. There were people who had a job. That's all.
With your heel commentary, with your one-liners and everything, was there ever a time throughout your career where, like, maybe you really insulted somebody and they really took it personally?
Yeah. Sid Vicious one day came up to me. I said, he's not the sharpest knife. He's not the sharpest fork in the drawer. That would be sharpest knife, wouldn't it? But being the brain, I made it look stupid, saying not the sharpest fork.
Right.
Like the Mikey Sheep Dip, the kid here. I call him that because that name will click better than his other name. Right?
Right.
So Sid came up to me and says, I'm not stupid. Don't talk about me like that. Okay. And then there was another kid named Canyon. He would get in the ring and he'd insult the people. And he'd say, what do you think of me? And they would say, you're the shit. And he'd get mad. Well, I told him one day, I said, why don't you get to the ring and compliment everyone? Entertain them. What a beautiful looking gown you have on. What a nice looking tie and beautiful children. And then when they say they don't like you, then say, wait a minute, I just told you I liked you. I gave you compliments. And you turned on me. But see, that's when you take a guy on the lowest level of the business and try to put him in a main event level. He wasn't ready. And I told him that. I said, try this. I'll maybe try it at a spot show. So where is he now? Some guys will never make money, and some guys will.
Jake Roberts. Your thoughts on Jake?
Jake Roberts was a tremendously talented man, but he had a lot of mental problems. He had a lot of emotional problems in his life. But interview-wise, when I was producing interviews, I could leave Jake in the room alone and do a week of interviews, him and DiBiase. Never have to worry about them. They would get everything on the money.
Right.
Yeah.
Did you see Beyond the Mat?
No.
The movie? Okay. I was going
No.
to ask you about that. Okay.
I've never read a wrestling book or watched a wrestling movie or anything like that. Because I think everybody's out there to knock us, and I don't need to be made a fool if I can do that myself.
You also managed Tully and Arn,
Mm-hmm.
Brainbusters. What was that like?
Arlen's a great guy. Tully's just got a personality problem. I like Tully, though. But I knew his dad real well. Joe and I were very good friends. Tully just... he had problems with people. He had a personality problem. That's okay.
Did you and Vince leave on good terms?
Yeah. I left there. My contract was up. I was just tired of going to New York. I was just tired of traveling. And my daughter was going to University of Alabama at that time, and I was living in Florida. So I had a chance. I was just going to take off a year and do nothing. I just wanted to take off a year. I was tired after 30-some years. And WCW called me and made me an offer, so I took it. And the only reason I did was to be closer to my kid. That's all. Had nothing to do with WWF. I mean, WWF was here. WCW's.
Right.
I mean, it's like playing T-ball to the Yankees. I mean, there was no comparison. It was a very poorly run company.
I guess, how were you initially approached by WCW?
I was home and I got called to do the Sunday night show. Eric Bischoff called me. I said, sure. So I came in. He gave me an offer. One price to do one show. And then when Jesse quit, I started doing Jesse's stuff. So he gave me a raise to do that. He gave me 3 raises. So I had no trouble with Eric. He wasn't the brightest guy when it comes to wrestling. But he gave me 3 raises. So he said, okay.
What were your initial thoughts of Eric Bischoff as a person and stuff?
Eric Bischoff was a used car salesman that just happened to be involved in wrestling.
How would you compare him and Vince? Or is there no comparison?
Walmart, Neiman Marcus. I mean, there's no comparison. There really isn't. First of all, whoever made the decision, whoever came up with the idea to beat Goldberg, that was bad.
Yeah.
But whoever okayed it, that was worse. Whether it's Eric's fault, whether it's Dr. Harvey Schiller's, or whoever it was, That's what killed the wrestling business.
He was the next big thing. They didn't even realize it.
Mark McGuire is a good friend of mine, and Mark McGuire came to Atlanta, and he wanted to meet Goldberg because Mark likes to work out. So McGuire was at the ballpark.
Right.
Goldberg went over to meet him. McGuire ripped his shirt off and rubbed his bat on his chest, and went out on his 70 home runs. We had no one from our company there to film it. Vince would have had McGuire at Louisville picking out the wood and the bat.
Right.
He'd have had McGuire getting dressed. He'd have had Goldberg putting on a T-shirt, getting ready. Vince would have produced it. Walmart.
I think one of the big problems with WCW is there was no guy that came from a wrestling background.
There was no money. There was no money that came out of their pockets. Vince is a wrestling company that needs TV to survive. WCW was a wrestling company that just happened to have us on. Eric Bischoff's money that was Turner's money. Ted didn't care. Vince's money is Vince's money. When I pay you for something, you better do it. They were giving guys money that you couldn't even believe. Guys that shouldn't have made 50 cents were making $500,000. Fans could see it. It didn't work. It was ridiculous. They never followed up an angle. They never did anything. They would do something and then let it lay. Never.
What were you thinking the night that everything went down between you and Brian Pillman at the Clash of Champions?
That was an accident. See, when you do TV, you can't look into the ring. You have to watch a monitor.
Right.
So I'm watching a monitor. I don't know Pillman. Never met him. He walked behind me and pulled my coat down around my shoulders, just playing.
Right.
But I had neck damage. And I thought it was a fan coming and grabbing me. So I yelled, "What the?"
Right.
But I didn't know it was Pillman. Wrestlers are dumb. They think, go mess with the announcers because they're on camera all the time. Don't they ever watch the show? We're only on camera maybe at the beginning, maybe at the end. WCW never put us on that much. They didn't know how. They were stupid. Let's open up as we're getting out of limos. Everybody gets out of a limo today. When you open up like that, you think, have I missed something? You got to start the show. You got to tell who the announcers are. What's coming up? What you're going to see. Make it exciting. That's how I feel. WCW just, it was a television production that had nobody in charge that knew what they were doing. It was pitiful to watch. And Tony Schiavone was the worst. Because he didn't like the fans, he didn't like the wrestlers, and he wouldn't tell Mike Tenay and I anything about what was going on. His secret to life was knowledge is power. So he felt if he knew something, he was more powerful than us. Big deal, you know this guy's going over. Who cares? And sometimes they wouldn't tell us what was going on. They said, we want it to be like a shoot. Well, how would you react? So I told them, I said, I wouldn't say nothing. Because we've never seen one. It don't happen. It's entertainment business. They never could understand that. They could not understand that.
They also put you with Steve McMichael, I believe.
Steve McMichaels was up for an Emmy Award when he was doing... Anybody can be up for an Emmy Award. They pick like 30 people, but only like 4 go for it. But he was at a different level when he was doing the television, radio for the Chicago Bears. And he was a Super Bowl champion, all that. And Eric Bischoff just fell in love with the guy because of who he was. But Bobby Heenan cannot do hockey. I can't even say the names. Look at eye charts. I can't do football. I can only do wrestling. McMichaels can do football. He can't do wrestling. Some guys just can't do certain things. Madden can't do wrestling. But they liked him. They wanted a younger and more MTV look. So that's why they took me off and put Madden on. That's a good look.
I want to backtrack a couple seconds. All right, sorry. I want to backtrack a little bit. We were talking earlier on about TV and stuff like that. Now, when Vince changed over his concept of TV, the earlier in the 80s, it was more like, the big guy against the smaller guy, squash matches and stuff like that. And he went to more competitive matches with Monday Night Raw. What's your take on that? I mean,
Oh, I like that. I never liked the. I always thought what a squash match was. The guy goes up and gets a beer and goes to the bathroom. He waits to see the interview. Cause nothing to see in a squash match.
Right.
And there's nothing really to see. Because the guy does the same thing all the time. He clotheslines a guy, slams a guy, kicks a guy. That's it. The interview you wanted to see. When Vince changed it around, I thought it made TV better. I thought it gave the fan something at home to see. A lot of people, like Tony Schiavone doesn't like the fans. And Ultimate Warrior, I was talking about him earlier. We had a spot one night where I jumped up and I told him he was going to clothesline me. I said, no, instead of clotheslining me, nail me and then post me. Because I had a bad neck. That way I could do the best I could for you and the product.
Right.
I jump up, he came out of nowhere and just waffled me to the floor. Went back to the dressing room, I asked him, I said, how come? He said, I never know what I'm going to do. I said, well then I never know where I'm going to be. See, what they don't understand is their whole character, their whole image is the ultimate this. I could make him look like a piece of crap so easy. All I had to do is say, slam me in the ring, cover me, and kick out. I could have killed his gimmick. I could have had him hit me with a clothesline and looked at him and gone,
right.
They don't realize they're vulnerable, and we got them. They don't realize that. And the fans don't deserve that. They deserve to have entertainment. I buried my mother, my grandmother, and my loved ones with the money I made off this business. So I owe them something. That's the truth. You can't look at them as marks, as kayfabes. No. There are people that get out of line. There are people that are relatives that get out of line. Relatives are like fish. After 3 days, they stink. Right? And remember, a friend in need is a pest. But no, fans are... They feed us. They do.
Did you also like the concept of Monday Night Raw?
Oh, I loved it.
Live wrestling.
I liked the Manhattan Center where they did it.
Right.
It had a different look. And it was energy in the building. And Vince knew it. And I liked it. I mean, I liked it. Yeah.
And what are your feelings on pay-per-views as far as the wrestling world and stuff? And did you see that as...
I think there's too many now. It's like I think the wrestling TV you see is as good as the pay-per-views. So why buy the pay-per-views when you're watching 52 weeks of good TV? Why pay $50 to see the same thing you're going to see?
Right.
I think when Vince had it like for a year, like there was SummerSlam, Survivor Series was hard.
Right.
Royal Rumble and WrestleMania, I thought that was great.
That was it.
But when he went every month with something, the only one that means anything now is WrestleMania.
Sure.
Really.
Now in WCW, did you still stay in contact with? Obviously, Gorilla Monsoon, you still stayed in contact with, right?
Until he passed away, until the day he died, his daughter called me the night before he died and said he was checking out of the hospital. He wanted to come home. And then she called me in the morning and she said he was gone.
I think he was there with them.
Yeah, because we knew Girl.
And Victor.
And Victor is I took Victor flew and we drove him to the hospital and I think we're
Yeah.
in Wellingborough.
And Valerie called me that night and told me. And he was just a great guy. Never had a bad time with him.
Funny story. First time we ever went to his house to drop him off, we were sitting and I guess his wife was getting us iced tea or something. We're sitting there and Girl was doing the yard work and he's wearing this pink hat.
See him walk
And
past the
he
window.
just walked past the window
on.
and popped in with the weed whacker. We're just sitting there like,
It was
it's
surreal.
the funniest thing.
His bedroom was Oriental, with furniture and stuff.
Right.
He told me, he says, she should have married Fuji.
That's great.
The last time, when they threw me out of Raw,
Right.
in where was it? New York, West, where Scullin lives.
I'm not sure.
It's right outside of LaGuardia there.
White
Plains. And they threw me out that night. And Vince said, how do you want to leave? I said, well, have Gino throw me out. I said, I'll have a bag that I'll have like lamps in it. I'll have towels and ashtrays. Everything that Weasel would steal. So Patterson said, why don't you have bras and panties? I said, well, Pat, when you and I pack for the road, I think we pack differently.
Yeah.
So Gino threw me out that night, and then we got in the car. We went back to LaGuardia to the hotel. We got in the elevator. We got off on the floor together, same floor. I said, well, this is it. We shook hands, and I went to my room. In my room was a basket of fruit. So I called him. I said, hey, you big ape, I got bananas here. He's okay. So he came down the hall, and I gave it to him. We cried for an hour in the hall. That was it.
Getting back to WCW, how were you treated in WCW?
Oh, no respect. I had an idea when Cactus Jack was there with Mankind or Man Pain or whatever his name was.
Max Payne.
Yeah, and they were wrestling the Nasty Boys or something. So I suggested, I said, why don't you have Gene open it up? And all you hear is sirens and red lights flashing in his face. And he says, you're not going to believe where I'm at. And just pull back. And he's in an ambulance going to the ring. And Bischoff said, Bobby, you're just an announcer. We'll come up with those ideas. And then that's when I figured it out. Every 2 weeks, cash your check, go home. I lost all desire to work. Didn't care anymore or anything. They wouldn't even tell us to finish it sometimes. Sometimes we wouldn't even get a program of what was going on in the show until like the third match. Everyone that was there, except for a few people, shouldn't have been there. They weren't qualified to be in television or to do anything to do in wrestling. They weren't any good. Simple. If all you people watch this now are going to say I'm a jerk, are we in business? Is WCW in business? Why? Because they couldn't do it. They didn't know how to compete with Vince McMahon.
If you were in charge of WCW, what would you have done differently?
I'd have put everybody in one room and roll a hand grenade in there.
All right.
What I would have done is I would have let it go as it was. I would have never bitched at the talent or the television people. You know why? Because they're going to do what they want to do anyway. This way, everybody would say, what's Heenan like? He never complains. So I still get my check every 2 weeks. That's all I care about now. I used to care about the business, how it ran, and what was going on, and how good we looked. I had respect for what I did. You get down there, when your money's not involved and they don't have any money, they don't care. So I don't care. Pay me. I'll go home. Just it.
Do you have any memories that stick out with WCW? Anything that was,
That'd be like asking George Brett when he had that hemorrhoid operation, if he remembered that.
Right. Let's see. I was going to ask you, was it hard to work there due to lack of organization? And obviously.
Yeah, it was. Because I like to work. I really like to entertain. I like to make people laugh. And some people think, well, my style of commentating isn't a whole hard sell heel. Well, first of all, not everybody believes what we do is real. Sometimes you've been in a fight in a bar and you threw a guy in the corner.
Right.
No, it don't happen. And I believe that not everybody believes it's real, so you have to entertain them and make them happy and have a good time. That's what I do. If you don't like it, fine. A lot of guys would tell me sometimes, not a lot of guys, Brian Adams one time told me, he says, we're trying to get over now. We're really serious out there. I felt like saying, well, then maybe you should lay him in. Not make it look like you couldn't break an egg. So, I mean, you can't make chicken salad out of chicken shit.
Right. Were you ever asked to return to managing in WCW?
Mm-hmm.
And you just didn't want to do it?
No.
Who did they want to put you with?
They didn't say, but they didn't know how to use wrestlers. They weren't going to use me. Plus my neck. I didn't want to bother with that anymore.
Right. How did things change when Scott Hall and Kevin Nash came into the company?
Business improved. Business was really good. I think Scott Hall was a heck of a talent. I think he had some bad advice from some bad people he hung with. But Scott Hall could still be a big player now with WWF. Used the right way. He's not a bad guy. He just gets bad advice from some bad people.
Right.
And Nash was just a big guy, nothing special. But Hall had charisma. He had when he did the toothpick thing. He didn't like doing that. I told him, I said, just keep doing it. Throw it right towards the camera. He used to do it like that. I said, no, do it like that. He said, well, does it look? I said, don't worry about it. He had no confidence. Then finally he got confidence. Scott Hall he'd be a heck of a talent. He has to be produced and controlled.
Speaking of you giving advice to guys, did any of the younger guys ever approach you with ideas or trying to seek advice from you?
Yeah, some guys would always ask me. I always try to help anybody, but I told them, I said, this may work for me, may not work for you. And I just told them the logic of it. Whenever you're involved in a match or managing or on air or whatever you're doing, pretend you're doing it for real. And it'll work. I mean, when I managed the guys, I pretended I owned them. I had an investment. When I was in that ring, this guy was going to kick my butt. And what would I do? What would I do if you came after me with a board? Would I shake hands? I'd beg, please don't. I'd pull a ref in front of me. I would do everything imaginable to save my hide.
Right.
It's simple.
Is there any guys that you could say that you were definitely responsible for as far as getting them over?
Oh, I don't want to take credit for that. I believe whoever got over because they did, with their own talent. If I had something to do with it, then we both did. I didn't get over by myself. I got over with managing people. So, the team of the Valiants, they were useless. They needed me. They were really useless.
Right.
They couldn't talk or walk. They could talk, but at the wrong times.
Right.
And I'll never say the right things. And they would do the same stupid things in the ring all the time. They were like your honeymoon. The next night's not that good. First time you see him was okay, but
Right. Now in '96, when WCW started to change things around and the business went up, how did Eric Bischoff change behind the scenes, personality-wise?
that's hard to say because he never had a confrontation with anybody. He never talked to anybody. No one there ever said when you were done with a broadcast, good, or that stunk. No one ever said nothing to you. You never knew anything, what was going on. Bischoff acted like he was above everyone else, and he had no time to talk to anybody else. Well, I'd been there since Lou Thesz and seen the Vince McMahons and the people that were important, and it didn't impress me, so I just ignored it. Every 2 weeks, cash a check.
When business started to go down, did anything change or same?
Oh, no. When business was good, things were the same.
Huh.
No one was nice to you. No one did anything. We were just lucky we had 83 weeks at number one. We were just lucky. And you know why we were lucky? Because remember Vince put on those vignettes about Hogan being old and savage?
Yeah.
All that did was make people tune in and see what we were doing.
Right.
That's what helped us and Goldberg. And then they killed everything. So they weren't smart people.
What would you have done with Bill Goldberg?
Oh, I would have had him go 3,000-0. First of all, he's Jewish. Most of the people in marketing and in television are Jewish people. They've never had a champion. They would run with this guy. They would love him. And I'm not being racist or anything,
Right.
but a Polish guy get over in Warsaw. If he Kowalski get over there if he was in Poland.
Right.
But I mean, this would have worked. They've never had a guy like this. Plus, he played pro ball. Plus, he was raw. He didn't know how to work. But what he did was good enough. And he had that look
Definitely.
that you could build around. And whoever decided to beat him and okayed it destroyed over 200 jobs of people at WCW. People that you don't even know that lost jobs because somebody was playing with the business. They didn't really know. And they didn't really beat Goldberg to help Goldberg or to help the business. They did it selfishly to hurt Goldberg and to hurt everybody.
He was definitely the future of the business.
Oh, of course. Of course. I would have had him go 2,000-0. Marciano did. Big deal. But that would have been something to talk about. And you need something to talk about. That was unique.
It was. At any time, did you ever have talks with ECW at all about?
No, never did.
And did you ever consider returning to WWF?
Yeah. I called Vince when I was done at WCW and told him I was available. And he said, I'll get back to you. And he used me at WrestleMania.
Right. How did that go?
That was fun. That was great. It was like being back in Hollywood after being on the, in a carnival.
Right.
It really was. Everybody was polite and thankful, and people said "sir," and the production was run well, and it was good. It was really good. It was. I got to see a bunch of old friends and stuff, and it was fun.
Do you think you'll go back?
If the money was right and the timing was right, I don't want to work every day anymore. I don't want to. I want to. I got my book coming out. I want to do that. I want to do personal appearances. I want to do commercials. I want to be a spokesperson for a company or something. Wrestling, I don't know if I want to do. I don't think there is going to be wrestling anymore. I really don't see it because people aren't going to buy tickets when they know what's going to happen. That's my thinking.
You think it's just the business is going to go down out of cover?
Yeah. Plus, I think you need an opposition to make yourself fight harder.
Right.
And I think Vince, even though he owns WCW, it's still the same. I mean, I hope the family does good with it, but I really see it's going to be a trouble. There's no interest there anymore. To me, there's no interest.
Now, I guess when you were replaced by Mark Madden, how did you find out?
I worked at WCW for 6 years. I missed 2 days. One was my mother-in-law died, and I had to go to the funeral. The other one was I had strep throat, and I called Tony. And I said, I can't talk. And I guess Terry Taylor, everybody went nuts trying to find Madden. And when I came back the next week, then that, what was his name?
Mark Madden?
No, the other guy that was supposed to be a writer.
Oh, the JR guy who worked with Vince Russo.
Russo.
Ed Fiera.
Oh, Ed was okay, but the other guy was...
Vince Russo.
Right.
Oh, he was just a three-corner guy trying to switch the P underneath the shell on the corner. That's all he was. Three-card Monty. Had no idea for the business. I mean, he thought everything in the business he wanted to change, he could prove it would draw money. He was a writer for Vince. Believe me. If he came up with 20 good ideas, Vince used one and changed it to what he wanted.
Right.
How did he do with WCW? Nothing.
It was horrible.
Horrible. He was a disgrace.
It wasn't even wrestling when he took over.
Pardon?
The TV wasn't even wrestling anymore.
No.
It was all skits. It was horrible.
No. It wasn't good. And he thought he could do it, and he couldn't.
I already asked you about Tony Schiavone. We brought him up. I was going to ask you about your favorite and least favorite announcers you worked with.
My favorite was Monsoon.
Right.
And Okerlund. He's and Mike Tenay.
How's Mean Gene to work with? Outside the ring.
Good. Yeah. He's good at work. He's funny. You know, you can always get a laugh with a guy with a bald hair and and a mustache at 5'3".
How did you find out that the WF was buying WCW?
Somebody called me and told me. I knew it was going to happen. I knew somebody was going to buy it because it was going no place. There was no management there or nothing. And I figured if Vince bought it, the only reason he'd buy it was just to own the tapes.
Right.
There's no other reason. Now they're using the underneath guys. It don't work. I'm sorry, I don't think it works. If that keeps me from getting a job at WWF, tough. That's the way I feel.
How were you treated by the boys when you came back?
Oh, they were great. Oh, yeah. I never met the Dudleys.
Right.
They were good guys. I had fun with them. They were good guys. I liked them. And, Eddie Guerrero's an old friend of mine, and
Right.
Malenko, and the Iron Sheik. He's just a typical fool. And Nikolai Volkov and I, and we're talking, and Hillbilly Jim. And,
Right.
oh, we had a best time. It was fun. It was like something pulls a stake out of your heart and you come alive again.
I was going to ask you, you kind of touched on it. Did you see that as a return, as a farewell, or a return?
I looked at it as an opportunity. Whether he's going to hire me or not is up to him.
Right.
Whether I want to work the schedule he wants is up to me. I really don't need the money. I just have to get out of the house because I'm thinking of my wife now as Nicole Simpson. I mean, you just can't be. I've been on the road for 40 years. Now I'm home. I just want to get out and do something.
Especially like going back to WCW, what was your feeling like towards like new style wrestling, like lucha libre and the Japanese and like the garbage wrestling?
That was okay once in a while. I mean, I thought for the Mexicans, what you should do is they brought in 12 guys a night. You should bring in 2 guys and bring in 12 hoods. They all look the same, just switch them.
Right.
Let them do interviews so no one's going to ever know who they are anyway. How many times can you hit a fat guy with a garbage can? That don't hurt.
Right.
How many times can you beat a guitar over a guy's head? And nobody's hospitalized. I mean, there's some things they did that's just ridiculous. Yeah. I was always brought up, when you hit a guy with something, do something,
he's out for a while.
Make it mean it.
Right.
Yeah. Or don't do it. But
Who do you feel is single, like, well, who was the main person for the downfall of WCW if you had to single out one person?
it has to be whoever was in charge, and it has to be Bischoff or Dr. Harvey Scheller. Whoever said, okay, we'll do that. We'll beat Goldberg. We'll give this guy $8 million to do nothing. We'll pay these guys $500,000 for 10 years. Stay home. Whoever made those decisions did it.
Do you think that was Bischoff's decision?
I don't know.
No.
I do not know. It wasn't his money. It was Turner's money. I don't think Ted knew where his money was. It was AOL's money. It was Time Warner. Who knew? It was hard to tell.
What were the politics like backstage at WCW with Eric
There
Bischoff
wasn't.
and Hogan and the Nash faction?
Well, you see, I was in the announcer's room. They were always in their room with signs on the door. Do not enter. And they had Donis Dillinger at the door watching it so no one would... You know what he did as a cop?
What's that?
He was a cop in
Yeah.
You know what he did?
No.
He drove the motorcycle at the funerals.
Oh.
What a danger there. They're dead.
Yeah.
And they're crying. And there's flowers.
Right.
No problem. He drove the motorcycle at funerals. No security. How many times do you see guys jump in the ring? But we had signs on the doors, do not enter. So I don't know what went on in Hogan's room or anybody's room like that. I know from Hogan, what I know, Hogan always tried to do the most he can for himself and the boys in the business. There's a lot of jealousy there. So whatever went on in that room, I don't know about. And no one would tell us, no one wanted to talk about it, and no one cared. It was at that point, at our level, no one even cared what was going on. We just wanted to get done at 11 and go home. It was just a complete bore.
Thoughts on doing the WoW pay-per-view?
That was great. First time I ever set a ring sign and looked up a guy's trunks. No, the girls worked hard, and David McLean treated me nice, and it was a different experience, and I enjoyed it. It was a lot of guys called me and said, "Why would you do that?" Well, why not? It was fun. I want to have fun. It's no worse doing a WoW than doing a WCW match or any match. It's entertainment. It's not wrestling. There is no wrestling. If you want to see wrestlers, go to IU or go to Iowa State. No, this is wrestling, pro wrestling. That's what it is. It's entertainment.
Do you have any thoughts of ever going into radio full time?
Yeah, I'd like to do radio. Yeah, I got a few things in the works I'm trying to do. I want to work with somebody. I don't want to do it by myself. I can't talk for 3 hours.
Right. You need to play off somebody.
Yeah, I need to do that, and I'd like to do that with someone. Like Tanay be a good guy. He's so straight, he's the kind of a guy.
Right.
He makes coffee nervous. But he's a very talented guy, though. He writes down everything. He's very prepared, and I like that. I like to rehearse. I don't like to rehearse, but I like to be prepared.
What do you say to your critics that say that your references on commentary over the last few years have been outdated?
Could be. Because of, you see the same moves. You see the same guys, just different faces. What can you say? Nobody does anything different. Plus, at WCW, they didn't want me to say anything.
Right.
Like Eric told me, they had a midget, Mexican battle royal midgets with hoods. He said, don't say nothing. Well, how can Bobby Heenan, the character, not say nothing?
Right.
He said, I said, what happens if I say something? He said, well, they'll all write in. I said, they can't reach the slot. How are they going to mail letters? So they all got in a ring at one time. So I just said, it looks like a ride at a daycare center. But in the old days, I could talk about Tito. I said,
Right.
things like that. But they didn't want me to do that. They wanted all the emphasis on their talent. They didn't want anybody else over. And a lot of things I probably did say was outdated. And probably because of the product, I didn't care. That was my own fault, probably, being a lackadaisical. I didn't care. There was nothing going to make me care.
If that battle royal was in WWF in the late '80s, it'd probably be the funniest match in the history of wrestling.
The what?
If that match was in WWF in the late '80s, that'd probably be the funniest match in the history of wrestling.
Oh, Vince would have let me do whatever I wanted.
Thoughts on the combination of Jim Ross and Paul Heyman? Do you still watch TV?
No.
No. Okay.
Jim Ross is very educated to the business. He writes down everything. He does his homework. I like Jim. I worked with him. My last pay-per-view at WWF was in Vegas, and Jim and I and Savage worked. Paul Heyman, I never worked with. I like him as a friend, a nice guy, and this guy's trying to get by in life, make a living. That's all it is.
Do you follow indies at all? Do you watch any of the indie promotions or anything out there? Or
No.
You don't watch anything?
No.
Okay.
No.
How does it make you feel after all the years that you've done for the wrestling? Wait, let me reiterate. How does it make you feel after all you've done for the business, and then you're watching the business today, and the managers have been replaced by girls out there with blonde hair and big tits?
Well, I didn't do anything for the business. What I did was for me. And what I made off the business and what I contributed was just me. What anybody else does is their business. If a promoter wants to use somebody with big boobs and a nice butt, fine. When we use a guy bigger than me, shorter, taller, fine. I had a choice a long time ago to get an education and go on to medical school or law school or trip and distract.
Huh. Right.
I chose this.
Memory of doing the Arsenio Hall show.
Oh, that was fun. That was fun. My wife stole everything out of there.
Huh.
They bring you a big basket in the room of fruit and
Right.
hams and everything. So if we leave, my wife picks it up. I said, leave it. She said, no, it's for us. I said, they'll think we never did anything like this. Don't pick it up. They'll think we're the Valiants. Don't leave it. Leave it.
Right.
So we get back to the room at night, about 12 o'clock at night. I said, boy, I wish I had some of that food. So she took everything out of her purse.
That's great. That's like my mom.
Yeah. So now, the next time I did Arsenio, I told him my wife stole everything. He said, well, that's for you.
Right.
He sent me a basket the next day with everything in it and a doll for my daughter with a jacket on and everything.
Right.
Class guy.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Did you ever have any heat with anyone outside the wrestling business for anything you've ever said?
No, just that time Sid told me not to mention he was the dullest fork in the drawer.
Right.
So, but the guys don't understand. Like Riberace always said, I don't care if they spell my name wrong as long as you say it.
Right.
And no, I never had any heat with any guy outside the business. Not at all.
I'm going to throw out some names to you, and you just comment whatever you want to say about them.
Sure.
Bruiser Brody?
Never liked the man at all. Very selfish. He would come into a territory. He had a mentality where he wanted to stick it to the promoters. So what he would do is he would screw up matches purposely or try to destroy business.
Right.
But he didn't realize there was a guy in that first match that was maybe making $50 that needed that to pay his car payment or maybe a child support payment someplace. And if Bruiser Brody kills that business, that takes that poor guy out of $50. And I believe when you're a top guy, you owe something to everybody on that card to be professional and to make sure that you do it right. If you don't want to work for the guy, tell him that. But don't screw the other guys on the card because they got to come back next week. You don't.
Abdullah Butcher.
Lazy. Couldn't do anything.
Right.
What could he do? It's a big
Sad.
fat guy with a
Fork.
with a fork.
Yeah. Jerry Lawler.
Fortunate. Very fortunate. He was raised in a small territory. He's managed to survive all these years. Good hand. Good worker.
Did you ever work Memphis?
Yeah, a couple times.
With who was Jarrett running?
I worked it in 1965 for Nick Lewis. Also worked it for Jarrett. with Bachwinkle on it. Yeah.
Do you know Jackie Fargo?
Yeah.
How's he like?
Good guy. Good guy. Just no money down there. Hillbilly mentality. They just don't pay you. No money. Most guys you see in Memphis are guys starting out or finishing up. No one goes there to make money. You went to Minneapolis, New York to make money.
All right. Jimmy Valiant,
Pig.
Billy Graham, superstar. Billy Graham.
Great talker.
Don Morocco.
Good guy. Good weed. No. No, but good guy. Don's a good guy.
I don't know why I did bring up earlier. King Kong Bundy. What was it like, man?
Good
King
guy.
Kong Bundy?
He always wore the black suits, right?
Right.
And he, white hair and no hair, right? We got on a plane one day, the stewardess says to me, what would you like to drink? I said, bring me a scotch and water. I used to call him Shamu. So she said, what would he like? I said, bring him a pail of fish. And he leaned over on me like this. And all the way to San Francisco, my suit was wrinkled. But no, Bundy's a good guy.
Dr. D. David Schultz.
Schultz was Schultz was a redneck before rednecks were cool.
Huh. He was the original Steve Austin.
Yeah, but David went too far.
Right.
Yeah, he believed wrestling was real. I mean,
Were you there for the 2020 thing? With
Yeah.
Is it true that Vince put him up to that?
I don't know,
Right.
but I wouldn't certainly slap somebody from ABC unless I was told.
Speaking of that, like Fuji was in the background there. How was Mr. Fuji? Like I heard he was like the biggest ribber.
Oh, he was great. Fuji was great. You'd fall asleep on the airplanes. He'd paint your fingernails. He'd shave your eyebrows.
Right.
Oh yeah, Fuji was good.
Speaking of another rib, I don't know. It was back in the AWA days. I think it was Mad Dog Vachon and like maybe Harley Race. He opened up the plane doors.
No, Dog did that once.
Yeah.
Were
you there? Or?
I was supposed to be on that flight, but I didn't. That's when the AWA had their own private plane.
Mm-hmm.
I used to call Suicide One. And Greg Gagne told Dog to be at the airport at 4 o'clock. They were flying to Denver, Rapid City, Minneapolis. So Dog at the airport at 4 o'clock. The plane left at 3:30. Dog was mad. Dog got on the plane that night, and he was really mad because he had to pay his own way to go to, and he just felt insulted. So he opened the door, and the door you had a catch. It would open with stairs that would go down, and then
Right.
the top would go up. The Dog opened that up and then wrapped the cord around his neck and threw the bag out, everything out of the plane. He just wanted to have something to do that night.
What like stories like that? How would you compare like wrestlers from like the 60s and 70s to wrestlers these days?
Oh, they were better in the 60s and 70s because they all rode in cars and they all got along. Now everybody, when they get off a plane, they first go get their own car, then they go to the gym, they go to their room, they work out, they go back and forth. There's no camaraderie. You learn to work in the car. You learn to do interviews in the
Right.
car. You learn to talk in the car. Now these guys come from gold gyms just because they got more gas in them than a BP station. They think they're a big tough guy. I'm sorry, it don't work. And I've never seen anybody do gas or do it, but I know it happens in every form of life. Probably the FD, the guy delivering flowers is on the pizza guy from Papa John's on gas. Who knows? But no, I was going to take it one time when I first started the business.
What happened?
There was a thing called Diana Ball. And an old-time wrestler named Rocky Montero used to be a boxer. He told me, kid, don't take it. He said, it'll screw your kidneys and your heart. I never did.
Speaking of drugs, like what is your opinion on drugs? And also maybe a different question. There's a lot of talk about drugs in wrestling these days. Was maybe not drugs back in the day, but how was drinking back in the 60s and 70s? I heard a lot of stories.
Well, people drank during the Depression.
Was it worse then than now, do you think? Or?
No. Milwaukee, there's a bar in every corner. All your life. There's always been. Actors have always drank. Baseball players, football players, everybody. After a baseball game, football game, there's beer in the locker rooms. Everybody drinks. No. There's always been that. People have always drank. Drugs now. The guys that smoke say themselves. The guys that do other stuff up their nose say themselves. They never flaunt it in the dressing room. They never talk to each other about it in front of me or anybody else. So that's kind of quiet, and that's what they do if they do it. I'm not saying they do or they don't. I don't know, but that's their business. But everybody has a couple beers after a match. Everybody gets on the airplane after a flight. The Dodgers get on the plane and have a drink going home. Everybody does. I mean, if you don't, then what are you doing? Then you're hanging around with Tony Schiavone, drinking Ovaltine at 9 o'clock. Reading a back edition of Hustler that no one knew you had. Seeing if your wife's in a back edition of Beaver Hunt.
Fritz von Erich, any?
Oh, I liked Fritz. He was a good. I knew Fritz in the '60s. Tragic story with his family and all the kids. And I didn't know David. I met Kevin one time. I didn't know the other two boys. I just knew Kerry from WWF, and I knew Jack Fritz from the old days, and he was always a nice guy.
Bret Hart.
Bret Hart was always a nice guy to me too. He was always intense about his interviews. Always wanted to know where it was going, what he had to say, what he was going to do, and very conscious about what he was doing, and no problem.
How do you feel about like what happened to him like with Vince and the Owen thing, and then like with WCW? What's your take?
Well, I don't know the whole story. To me, the Owen thing is a tragedy. Owen was a very, very, very nice man. As I was leaving White Plains that afternoon before we did the thing where I finished up, I was going across the street to a diner to get a sandwich. And Owen walked up next to me and he said, I hear this is your last night. I said, yeah. He said, why? I said, well, I just want to do something else. I'm tired. He said, well, it's going to be a big loss to us. And he shook my hand. And I thought, what a nice guy. He really was a nice guy. And not everybody came up to me and did it that night. I can remember Owen Hart doing it. I remember Jack Lanza with my friend from forever did it. And Gorilla. And that was just about it. And Rene Goulet. Other than that, that was about it. What happened with Bret Hart and Vince? There's two ways to look at it. He didn't want to do the job for Michaels in Canada. Well, he's not winning nothing or losing nothing. It's a belt someone's giving you. Vince owns the belt. You do what the man tells you. Now, if you have it in your contract that says, I have complete control, well, then Vince shouldn't have maybe given him that if he didn't want him to have complete control. Then there was a double cross. It's probably happened at every hairdresser shop you've seen, every body shop, every place in the world. Who knows? I wouldn't have gotten mad. I'd have put the guy over, got my money, and gone home. We're in this for money.
Exactly.
I knew guys for years that if you told me you give them $1,000 a week to do jobs, or I'll give you $500 to be the champion, well, they'll take the championship because they had the belt. But they're losing $500 a week. But guys don't understand sometimes.
Speaking of doing jobs, a couple people on prior shoot interviews said that they heard that with the Andre Hogan match, that Andre maybe at the last minute was going to back out and not do the job. Is there any truth to that?
No. No, Andre he wouldn't have done that to Vince McMahon. And he wouldn't have done it to the business. If Andre was going to beat you, he'd tell you. He don't have to trick you. He could beat you. I think Hogan was concerned that he was going to do the job, that Andre was going to do it or not. But I asked the boss, I said, what are we going to do? He said, don't worry.
Since Andre never did a job, who approached him to do the job?
Andre. It was Andre's idea.
Well,
Andre's idea. He realized, I believe, that this was his last big pay-per-view he could have ever gotten. And with who? Hogan. Hottest guy in the business, biggest guy in the business. And he asked Vince if I could be his manager because he trusted me. And that was a compliment. So there was never nothing to do. Boss just said, don't worry about it. And if he wanted to beat Hogan, he was going to beat him. If he didn't, he was a professional. He made his money. That's what he wanted to do, is make his money on the way out and be on the biggest one that he could be on.
Speaking of guys like that are like big guys in the business, do you think if Goldberg was in WWF instead of WCW, he could be bigger than Austin?
Oh yeah, because he's bigger than Austin. He looks better than Austin. I mean, Austin's not a big guy. He just swears a lot. But Goldberg, yeah, I think it'd be different. Yeah, I don't think the people want Austin now as a heel.
No,
No.
they like him too much.
Yeah. I don't think there are heels anymore. They like characters now. They like to be entertained.
Lou Thez?
Lou won the belt in 1937. I was jumping from ball to ball, like even becoming a bastard at that time. God, 37. Lou was always a nice guy to me. Lou was always a gentleman to me, and but you know, his styles passed him by, and you know, putting your elbow to the ear anymore, doing that don't work.
Right.
I don't even know what works anymore. But no, Lou was a nice man. He's a gentleman.
How about Bruno Sammartino?
Bruno's okay. He's bitter about the business. A lot of guys you got to understand something. If you're bitter about it, why didn't you get out of it? I mean, if you made nothing at it for 20 years, then you're a fool.
Right.
If you made money at it and bitch about it, shut up and keep it. I made money at it. I had fun. I don't like the way it ran because there was no hospitalization or pensions and that, but I had a good time. I had a lot of laughs with a bunch of good guys. And I broke my neck, and I had my knee operated on. I had nerve damage in my hand. But that could have happened working at a 7-Eleven. I'm married to an Italian woman. Her family could have killed me. So, it doesn't matter. I made money doing what I wanted to do and had fun.
Now, Roddy Piper, we've talked to him a lot, and he talks about, you know, making a union in wrestling. Do you ever see that happening?
No.
No.
Can't trust anybody. And at my stage in life now, no. There was talk about that years ago, but you couldn't trust anybody, and plus they'd blackball you. The promoters didn't want that. If you were making $5,000 a week someplace and didn't like working for Watts,
Right.
well, I'll go work for Eddie Gray and make $5,000. But if they keep you making $50 a week, you couldn't make that move because you had to pack your family up and your apartment and your tables and chairs and move to another territory and hope to get over.
Right.
You know, they kept you on that money. It wasn't fair. It wasn't fair. But you had a choice. You could have left.
Did you ever were approached to work WWF before, like with Vince Sr.?
I called Vince Sr. for years. Every 6 months I talked to him. But he wouldn't use me because he had 3 guys. There was the Wizard,
Right.
Albano, and Blassie. And he didn't have enough to bring in a 4th manager. And I talked to him before he died. I went to Japan. And he said, Bobby, something big is happening, but I can't tell you what's going on. That's when the kid was taking over everything. And he says, just call me when you get back from Japan. And I was in Japan. He died. And that's what happened. But no, I would have wanted to go there because you only had to do TV every 3 weeks, and then you got paid for every time your man was in. You didn't have to go to him.
That was a good deal.
Yeah, it was a good deal.
You talked about Japan and your neck. Exactly what happened?
Oh, there's a guy named Onita, and I was in a tag match, Harley and I against Onita and Haku. And Haku slammed me, and Onita came off the top and dropped the leg like Hogan does.
Right.
But he landed in my face and took my head that way. And I was on the mat, and there was no place to go. And I broke 2 discs in my neck, and they had eventually, I was 83. I didn't have the operation until 95 because I had no insurance. So when I went to work for Turner's, when I had insurance to have my neck operation. And they told me it'd be 2 hours. I was in the operating room 7.5 hours. And they took 2 bones out of my hip and put it in my neck and cut off 2 discs, 5th and 6th. And it was really getting bad where my neck didn't hurt as much as my arm did. And I couldn't grip things. And I'm 56 now. And I was getting to the age where it was really bothering me. And that's why I quit managing. I just couldn't go out there, and when a guy got hit, I couldn't react and work because it hurt me to move. And people don't understand it. Well, you just suck it up. Yeah, I sucked up for a lot of years, and I got tired of hurting. I'm sorry.
Speaking of Watts, did you ever work for him?
No.
No.
No. His territory worked every day, 7 days a week, and they
Well,
drove.
traveling.
And I didn't want to. I wanted to join the WWF, not the AAA. Yeah.
Thoughts on Detroit and the original Sheik?
Pardon?
What are your thoughts on working in Detroit, big time wrestling? And
With the
original
Sheik?
Yeah.
Oh,
Sheik.
he was my first friend in the business. In 1961, in Indianapolis, I was carrying jackets and setting the ring up. He'd give me his keys, and I'd go sit in his car. He had one of those double-door Lincolns, like
All right.
Kennedy was killed in. And I would go out and sit in his car, and he'd come out and give me $5 and talk to me. He didn't talk to anybody. And would always give me, sometimes if he was late and was on last, he'd give me a ride to the bus stop so I could catch the bus home so I didn't have to hitchhike home. No, Sheik was okay with me.
Whatever happened to his promotion? Because it seemed like it was huge, and then it just...
Well, anybody has a 20-year run. Gagne had a 20-year run. Everybody does. You just run out of ideas and run out of talent. And you can't do the same disqualifications and the fire and blood every night.
Right.
For 20 years, it gets old. And it changes.
Did you see that was kind of innovative for that time, or was...
Oh,
was wrestling always kind of hardcore, but nobody ever really knew about it, like with the blood and the...
I don't think they knew how we got blood. They thought it was ketchup or capsules. But they never understood. If you had a capsule, where would you carry it?
Right.
What if you carried it in your trunks and got kicked there? You look like you were in your period. I mean, the toughest species in this world are women. Think about it.
Why is that?
Who else do you know that bleeds for a week and lives?
It's true.
That's tough.
Besides the WF, what was your favorite promotion that you worked for?
The AWA.
AWA.
Yeah. Because you don't work every day. You work 3 or 4 days a week, and we're all in Minneapolis. It was like a family there. There was Rashke and Lanza and Bockwinkel and Stevens and Patterson and Remus, and we all played golf together. We all went out together. We all had parties at Christmas at each other's houses and Thanksgiving. It was really fun.
Do you have any regrets?
Do I have any regrets about the business?
Yes. Or any of your decisions that you've made?
Yeah. I probably wished I would have worked out more and got a little bigger and could have been the world's champion and made the same money and been screwed more. So it didn't really matter.
Right.
No, it didn't really matter. I probably wished I wished I would have stuck up more for myself and realized how valuable I was and how valuable some of the boys were. Promotion didn't think we were, but we were. And we should have had, before a union or anything, we should have had residuals. We should have had payment off the TV shows.
Right.
And we don't have nothing. We didn't know.
Did you ever work with Jim Barnett?
Yeah. Worked for him in 79 in Georgia, and I worked for him in when I went back to WCW, whoever ran it then.
Can you do an impersonation? We've had like 10 straight shoot interviews that everybody impersonates him.
There's one catchphrase.
My boy.
There it is.
There it is.
No, did Jim Barnett I'd have to rip my shirt off and pretend I was a lumberjack. That's it. Now, when he was a kid, where do you think the pacifier went? Just think about it. I don't know. Maybe I'm just guessing.
There's one guy that you never got to manage that you would have liked to manage. Who would that guy be?
Hogan.
Hogan.
Sure. The money. That's what the money would have been.
It'll be
He was
great.
easy to travel with. He was no problem. Really the easiest guy in the world.
If he was a heel and you were with him, it would be amazing.
Yeah.
Do you still talk to him?
No. I don't really talk to anybody. He was down the street from me. We only live about a mile from each other.
Really?
But, I've seen so many guys naked. When I'm home, I just want to be with my family. There's nothing else to talk about anymore. What you're going to do? You're going to wind up bitching about some other promotion or why things aren't going right. It's not necessary anymore.
Thoughts on The Rock? Top guys like Triple H in the business.
Triple H, I love the guy. He really, really dedicates himself like he cares about what he does.
He's a student of the game.
Pardon?
He's a student of the game.
Yeah. That's it. I wish you would lose the water and the black trunks and black boots, because that's blah to me. I wish you'd have a little more color.
Right.
If you had blonder hair with a little more flourish, I like that. The Rock, I think, is great. I like the way he talks and all that. You know, but then you got to look at Hogan and Vince. Could Vince have done it without Hogan? Could Hogan have been there without Vince? Vince would have done it without Hogan, I believe, because Vince was that smart. Hogan probably would have done it without Vince. Together, it worked.
In closing, is there anything you want to say to your fans out there that you never had a chance to say to them?
Yeah. A lot of the guys are going to be mad because I'm writing a book and I'm talking about work and heels and baby faces and maybe expose the business. But it's very simple. The magic is over. Everyone knows how we do the tricks. God bless the memories. And God bless the fans. And God bless America.
Thank you very, very much for being here today.
Now who pays me for this son of a...
TitleMatchNetwork.com